Go Bills.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollos, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
Hello, and thank you for tuning into another edition of the Bills Canvas. I'm your host, Pat Bruckness. You can find me on Twitter at Pat_Bruckness, and I'm here with my co-host, Tommy Giambra. And Tommy, do you want to tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes, y'all can find me at Giambra T on X, and I'm on Instagram and TikTok on Tommy Giambra.
All right, I know you post a lot of TikToks.
I try to keep up with the TikToks. Yeah.
Before we get started, I just want to say thank you for tuning in now or who's watching on the replay. Thank you to all of our amazing sponsors. And we do have some news coming out of One Bills Drive that we will be getting into here shortly. But at this time, I do want to introduce our guests. I'm sure everybody that's tuning in knows them, Kevin Massare. Kevin, how you doing tonight?
Living the dream, guys. How are we? Doing
Good.
well. Glad to be on here. Glad training camp is back. Excited for some news dump, but it's still the calm before the storm, I like to say.
Yeah. Now, Kevin, do you want to tell everybody what you're working on or what you plan on working on during the season?
Yeah, I got just a lot of different things going on. Obviously, you can find me at Kevin Massare. It's generally the place where I release most of my content, but we'll be working on a few exclusive things I have in the pipeline, so it'll be cool. So watch out for some announcements I have coming up here in the next couple of weeks. But outside of that, I'm just looking forward to going to training camp. I'm not too far, so being able to get there, been credentialed in the past. So being able to actually McDermott's first year was my first year at the Pass. And excited to meet up with people, talk Bills, cover what seems to be a pretty loaded roster. And there's, in my opinion, not a ton of battles, but there's a few. And it's as good as a team can be when you have a quarterback making $50+ million.
Yeah. No, I agree, and you're lucky. Yep. You're going to training camp. I tried entering the lottery. I was able to get tickets.
Yeah, I've got them through different sources and means, but dude, it's a mess. I know many people. Yeah. I would say almost everybody I've talked to did not get chosen. So I'm really not sure who got chosen for training camp. It is a circus now. With HBO being there, I'm assuming it's only going to be worse. But generally speaking, it was a really awesome event with awesome food. Literally a great time, a lot of stores. But now I think it's just overcrowded. They just, I don't know, people are treating it like a preseason game almost in a way. It's just too many people. It used to traditionally been a really great experience, but a D3 college cannot hold the amount of, they have to bus you into training camp, which is weird. That's crazy. So it cannot hold the amount of buzz that the Bills have now post Josh Allen.
Well, so yeah, I even tried getting training camp tickets for the Bills-Bears scrimmage in Chicago. I was up about 3 hours before the tickets even went live, and I was 1,500 in the queue, and I was one of the first people to click on it. And I believe it was 8:15 or 9:15 Central Time, and I couldn't even get in.
Was that last year or this year?
This year.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, well, I ain't seen the Bills in training camp this year. I will be there for that Bills-Bears preseason game though, so get to see some of the guys then.
They're practicing there too, so
yes, they are.
So
that's cool.
I don't know if they have open practice or what the Bears do, but
yeah, they have open practice, but they put the tickets on Ticketmaster in a queue, like how they do for all training camp tickets. So I couldn't even get any of those.
Wow,
man, what a mess.
Yeah,
well,
yeah.
Which is what happens when you have the MVP, and also in Buffalo's case, you have Hard Knocks around the corner. You're gonna have Hard Knocks in Chicago for that week too. So so it's definitely. People are hunting the extra buzz. So, but honestly, training camp's mild, especially under McDermott. You'll find practice cut short often. They don't run a lot. It's really for the rookies, second-year guys. But in the Bills' case, it's not going to be overly dramatic.
Right.
Now, I do want to talk to you a little bit about Landon Jackson. The Bills did put him on the active/physically unable to perform list. Do you think this is more of a caution before training camp, or is this something to actually monitor?
No, it's per CBA. If a player shows up with something they didn't leave with an injury, so he must have picked something up in the 6 weeks or whatever weeks it was that he was gone. So per the CBA, they have to list it. They can't like slow play it. If you would have had a football injury, like during OTAs, they wouldn't have had to do that. But it's only a benefit to the team. Like if it ends up being an issue, the Bills are protected a little bit from an off the field injury. It is just a contractual thing, but by all expectations, from what I've heard from people that I trust, that it is not expected to take long. You can come off the active list at any point. It's not the reserve list that you could go on at the end of training camp, which means you're done. They've changed the rule last year, but it's just like IR now. So you can come back off of that list as well. But generally speaking, if you go on PUP prior to training camp, you're out for the season. And then obviously the new IR rules. But you don't off your spot from this. So there's not really a benefit to the Bills much other than to protect their asset a little bit.
So you aren't surprised that he was on the list, knowing that Brandon Beane said that he thinks everybody was an okay, so it's not concerning then?
Yeah, it's not so he picked something up while after Bean said that.
Okay, I got you. Okay. That makes sense.
I would assume it's not serious. I would assume that it's might just be something minor where they're like, all right, well, we do have to put you on it because we're not 100% sure you'll be here day one. You can come off day two though. Like ultimately, I'm not overly concerned. If it was major, these things leak pretty rapidly. If it was something longer than call it a week. So I'm ultimately at most a few days, but I really think he'll be ready for day one. And if not, the Bills are protected in a scenario where he's unable to go.
And another thing, I think he's still advertised for MafiaCon too for Saturday. So that might be a good sign too, if he'll be there.
Generally speaking, that's a decent sign. If he pulls out of that,
then we have to worry.
Yeah, that's not ideal. But the Bills could still just be super. The Bills do not like leaks, but ultimately, it is by all accounts supposed to be a very minor. I would assume a hamstring pull or maybe like a hurt his foot or something. I can't imagine what it is, but it's something you get from working out or playing with your kids or whatever it may be. In his Landon Jackson nephews and nieces, whatever. In his case, it could just be something that happened off the field. But the Bills generally have to protect themselves by putting them on that list because the injury did occur by all accounts outside of team facilities.
And did the rookies report today, Kevin?
Yes. Yep.
Okay, they reported today. Okay, cool.
Okay. So the Bills have to come in and say anybody was hurt. They have to report it. Thus the list to put them on is actually that list.
Right. Okay.
Now with the rookies reporting everything, what about Maxwell Harrison in that whole case he's dealing with? Could he face possible suspension?
By what I've heard from people out of Kentucky, the case was already cleared. It's a civil case. If details emerge civilly that there is issues there, it could always turn into more with a personal conduct policy violation, which, Roger Goodell does pretty as he feels like it. But for the most part, no, I don't anticipate that. It's been looked into back in Kentucky.
So they did their research on it.
Both the Kentucky and the PD, local PD there. Both did their research. That doesn't necessarily mean everything, but by all accounts, it does not look like there's anything more than maybe trying to see what they could happen. I mean, the timing's weird on the situation. Right after you sign a rookie, like right after you sign your rookie contract, right during the draft, it originally leaked. Right. Mm-hmm. I mean, that should have been stuff being pursued his whole college tenure if there was more there. Not originally before he was 17 and then 4 years later. Doesn't really line up a lot, but details could emerge. I don't have the details to any of that kind of stuff, and but by all accounts, I do not anticipate any sort of even low level suspension. I would anticipate that not being a thing, and trying to work on it civilly, which is monetarily for the most part.
Well, that's a good sign.
And then I think we have one draft pick not signed. It's TJ Sanders. Is that correct?
Yeah, the second round picks are having an issue right now. So you had the Houston Texans go out and basically guarantee the contract of Higgins. And when they did that, the other GMs and owners were like, whoa, what are you doing? Like, I know you wanted to get the contract signed. Everybody wants to get their contract signed. It's been pretty easy in the past. There is a money slot linked to everybody's time slot now per the CBA. There shouldn't be much negotiating, a little here, a little there, in terms of signing bonus, little minor stuff that usually is not a big deal. But by signing the guaranteed contract, and then also Schlesinger as well, the linebacker. So now you have all 30, the 30 remaining are looking for a fully guaranteed contract, like a first round pick has. So it's a battle more like second round picks versus the entire league than it is like specific to the Bills or specific to whomever.
Right.
Now what's happening in Cincy is a little bit different. They're not even doing what they need to do for their first round pick.
Yeah. That story's wild. That story's wild.
It's wild on all ends, to be fair, but Cincinnati's got to do something to get that done. But the player is asking for some certain things that generally haven't been given in Cincinnati's history,
right?
And that one's not a guaranteed contract per what I've read. So not really sure exactly the nuance of it. Was Cincinnati got enough to cover in Buffalo, but the second round pick deal is a major deal with the whole league, not necessarily TJ Sanders. So originally when I heard that, I was like, whoa, what is Sanders doing? But then when I obviously, read all the different aspects of it, it's a league problem right now.
Okay. So, so you think it'll get done maybe by next week or something will get done?
I don't know, man. That one's weird because that's once again, it's players combined versus teams. That isn't like a TJ Sanders, waiting for a few things to change. That's literally a major problem right now with second round picks. So I honestly have no idea what's going to happen with the second round picks in the NFL this year. I would assume they'll get antsy and they'll want to play within a week, like you mentioned. Yeah. But if they bond together and they hold the line,
then it could be dicey.
It could start eating into preseason for sure. But we'll see what happens. I think the teams will have someone's got to give. It's either got to be the players saying, you know what, all right, Higgins got his deal, great for him, and that's just one off, or the players are going to be like, nah, like, look, we're second round picks too. Like, you got to match the terms that you gave the precedent of Higgins,
right?
So TJ Sanders could follow suit in that. They're kind of together right now, so they could start breaking off. But as of this moment, it's a sticky situation right now with second round picks in the NFL.
Yeah.
Now, hypothetically, if the Bills can't sign TJ Sanders or even the Bengals can't sign Shamar Stewart, what happens? Would that team get a comp pick next year, or is that just a waste of a pick?
I don't know the new CBA rules. I don't believe you get a comp pick though. You may. Oh wow. That player just goes into the draft. There may be something there, but if you do, it's not where you pick the player. Right. So obviously, it's much drastically reduced. So they may put you. The formula's strange. No one actually knows the formula, and I've tried to study it. And that goes for all the comp picks. We've got a pretty good grasp on how it works, but some nuance like that, we don't know. Like. It depends on how it's filed and what ends up happening. The player can go back in the draft. He can do whatever he wants, I guess. I'm not exactly sure on his end what he's allowed to do from a player perspective. But he can enter the draft again. I don't know what happens to his value. It's not great for anybody, really. But players are coming out with deals now. They're coming out with NIL deals. They can still do things, and it's a different world where before they couldn't do that. So I don't know if it's a lock for sure on the comp pick anymore. And if it is, you're talking about an agreed upon level of maybe a day 3 pick. So either way, it's not going to do anything for when you spend, in the Cincinnati Bengals case, top 25 pick, top 22, wherever you went, 20th or whatever. So it's not ideal. It really is not a great situation between him and all the second round picks right now. Right. Someone's got to give, and I don't see it being the league. So if the players go together, there's going to be more holdouts than we've really ever seen in NFL history. So we'll hopefully that gets corrected.
Yeah.
In the next week.
Yeah, hopefully.
Definitely.
Because the Bills did trade up, was it 18 spots or 21 spots with Chicago to get TJ Sanders.
And they got the third back though. So they traded up and then back, like technically up, and then they're second back. So, and that's where they were taking. The Bills claimed they were going to take Landon Jackson anyways with the second. So they claimed that there wasn't really a trade back, and said they just got the player at a reduced third round pick rate. So I kind of believe them. They followed Landon Jackson around, and then we know they liked his comp, they liked his they liked his prototype, they liked what he can do in this defense. So I do I don't know if that's fully the truth, but I do believe they didn't have a third. So I do believe that they may have selected him with the second anyways. So in theory, I like to say the Bills didn't trade anything going up to get TJ Sanders. That was the original thought. It was like, well, why just stay put? And if he's not there, go with Alfred Collins or whomever may be on the board still. But for me, it's like to go secure the guy that you think's a scheme fit. And you ended up, maybe you got lucky, but you ended up getting the player you would have selected anyways. It was fair business by Brandon Beam. But yeah, they did trade up to get the players. So, and he's toward the top of the second round ish. For where they selected him. So, he's right in the thick of it. He's not going to be one that gives in. The end of the second round players may start to give in, like on playoff teams. But TJ Sanders is weird because he's on a playoff team, but he got selected fairly early in the second round where the Bears selected. So that's a sticky scenario right now. And the Bills are in deep in this because of Caserio and because of the Houston Texans.
Right.
Well, thanks a lot, Houston.
Just not great.
Yeah.
Not great.
Kevin, I do want to talk to you a little bit because the Bills obviously have had, very limited cap space this year. They have made quite a few good moves, like Elijah Moore, which that's moved a lot of people like Joey Bosa. Which free agent signing has been your favorite?
The Bills, I mean, to me, if you take the draft out of it and you really look at like who did the Bills acquire that's going to end up potentially being, quote unquote, more of an impact style player. And I really think that the easy one to throw out real quickly is Trey White because he knows the defense. He knows what to do. The Bills wanted Jair Alexander by all accounts and by everything I've heard. And they ended up getting Trey White instead. He's good. He's been good in the defense so far. This is OTA, so I'm not going to, so is Chase Claypool. So I'm not going to take anything out of it yet, but he's been picking up right where they left off and he's going to give a fair battle to Maxwell Harrison. For that starting role. And if not, he's definitely going to be the fourth corner, or a lot of people like to say the third corner because they don't like to include the nickel. But for me, CB4, because Taron Johnson's an every down starter. And he's going to be the CB4 and a guy that can play it very well in an emergency. And it's something they did not have last year. The Bills were an absolute mess in the back seven again, come the playoffs. So it's definitely a much needed depth piece to this roster. But obviously, Bosa is the name. If he's back to anywhere near where he's been in the past, he's a DN1. Like you're not shooting for a DN3 here. You're not getting the Mario Addisons or those lower level. Even in theory, even higher than you're talking about like a Floyd, a higher step up than a Floyd. So if you score on that, to me, I really think you're talking about a pivotal hit. And I haven't been a huge Josh Palmer fan, but we'll see what he's able to do. He's a great route runner. His metrics are decent. My problem I have with Josh Palmer is if he has the good metrics, he has the good route running, he has the separation, why doesn't he get the ball? So there is, and he plays with a good quarterback too that doesn't seem to look his way ever. Obviously a guy that many would consider 6th to 8th, depending on who you are. But a guy like Justin Herbert who can sling it and he played really well down the stretch. Yeah, didn't overly use Palmer any differently than we used like Deontay Hardy or somebody in the past. So that's I got to see what's going on. And Josh is the same way, man. If he does not feel it with you, you kind of go in that camp of getting 30 or 40 catches a year, and that's it. So I do need to see why they like Palmer. I love Brady, but he has kind of missed on what he's looking at for in a type of receiver. So we have to see how this all comes together. But Elijah Moore has obviously been somebody who's been much loved and has played once again the OTAs again. So we have to see if that translates to training camp to the season. But he's been a guy that does seem to fit the Josh Allen mold. That's what in my opinion, more than others. So we'll see if that ends up going anywhere like an Emmanuel Sanders, or if we continue to sign these guys who get 30 catches and that's it. So but to me, that's kind of the gamut of players that the Bills acquired. And you guys, like, what the Bills mainly spent the offseason signing their own, and continuing to develop their own draft picks. So that's a huge part of the put that in the draft together, where they drafted all defense. Like that's a huge part of their offseason. And really, we just talked about all their moves between Bosa, Palmer, and Moore. I mean, that's Trey White. I mean, that's pretty much the decisions they made, with some depth players like Forrest and a couple others. But that's really what they did this offseason. And then they signed their own, obviously, like whoever it may be. But they really pretty much brought back the entire roster and added an entire draft class to it. So that's why I call it one of the deepest rosters in the league. And They have depth this year. That's where they were lacking last year with the $40 million in dead cap space. So that's never talked about enough, is that the Bills had the second most, only because the Russell Wilson trade from Denver. But the Bills had the most dead cap space in the league last year, second technically. But that issue was it started to eat into the Bills' depth. And once they finally decided to have injuries again, it really hurt who was going on the field. So they didn't make a ton of splashes, but Bosa's really got to be the guy that takes him to the next level, pre-injury Von Miller level.
Right. Kev, I got a question. I got a question.
No,
Keon Coleman, how do you figure he's going to do this year with Josh? You think he's going to up his game this year and have a really good season, 1,000-yard season? Because I on past show, Tommy's takes was I had Keon Coleman going over 1,000 yards this year with Josh. So how do you think that relationship with Josh and Keon does this year?
I mean, Josh seems to give them the junk balls that he gave Gabe Davis. So that's first and foremost. But I mean, look, by all accounts, Josh wanted this type of receiver. It was the player that he chose. I mean, there was others we all talk about, my and Ladd McConkey. Other people may have been worthy. Some people like A.D. Mitchell. I know some people like Xavier Legette. And they had their choice of which guy style to go with. And by what we've heard, Josh was the one pushing the table for wanting the style of player that Keon Coleman is. So if that holds true, I'd like to see that relationship develop. And a lot of his advanced metrics look great. Like I went through a lot of his stuff in pre-injury. The advanced metrics were there for Keon Coleman in many regards. So that's what I like to see. It's tough to know. Like let's see here. I had just some numbers up for him. 22 in ADOT, which is average depth of target. So 22nd in the league. So receiver 1 numbers, 48th in YAC. So receiver 2 numbers, 50th in total EPA with only having an 80th ranked in target share. So in theory, some of those metrics take a hit when you get higher targets. But if the Bills are top 50, Keon Coleman is top 50 in some of the key indicators of a receiver, ADOT is huge. Like how well can you run a route? He was running pretty decent routes. His separation, can be discussed. That is a hot button topic. That is one that he doesn't rank high in. But his average depth of target is strong. The plays that he is making with his EPA, meaning, how many points above expectation is he creating for his offense, is very high. Ultimately, Keon Coleman is a guy that's numbers point, and then YAC, which is what the Bills were looking for, ultimately is what points to him having a progressive season to closer to what a receiver 1 or 2 could look like, progressing to that mean. So that's really, the high end of it. The low end of it is, look, he didn't separate great. He got hurt. Can he hold on in an entire season? And will he get the chemistry with Josh? So that's the other end of the coin. But for me, and then obviously all the receivers there, like you miss on a Ladd McConkey. Ladd McConkey could have played 2 roles. You wouldn't have needed Elijah Moore. I mean, so look, there's a lot to discuss when it comes to his, and then obviously Worthy, but there's a lot to discuss when it comes to the Bill selection of Keon Coleman. But Josh Allen liked him. Josh Allen's got to prove. He has Dalton Kincaid, which is a talked about topic, and he has got Keon Coleman. Got to use the weapons that he claims, at least, that he wanted.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Now, Kev, I know you're not a big fan of Curtis Samuel. You said that on your podcast last year. And you said you're not a big Josh Palmer fan. Who do you think will have a bigger impact for the Bills this year? And who
between the two of those?
Yes. And who do you think Josh will have more targets with?
I'm going to go with Palmer because I really never saw the Curtis Samuel fit. Now with Elijah Moore here and Khalil Shakir playing inside and outside, and obviously Keon Coleman we've talked about already. I don't know where Samuel fits in. That is a Brady selection, and I don't really know where Curtis Samuel goes on this offense. He's always hurt, so I got to see him healthy. Like the biggest excuse made was that toe lingered all year. Like, okay, like that's part of the problem though, is like the toe always lingers. Something's always wrong.
And they can't trade him, can they, Kev? They can't trade.
Could.
Oh, they could?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
He's got a tradable contract. The Bills would eat some of it, and another team wouldn't acquire that much.
Okay.
So, big, strong camp. The Bills feel really good about their top 4, and then maybe they like a guy like a Caden Prather or a Shavers, or, I'm not the world's biggest Shavers fan either.
Right.
But ultimately, if their top 4 produces, the Bills can go ahead and make a decision to move him and save some cap space.
Mm-hmm.
And then obviously the thing everybody's going to be rooting for, as we always do here in Buffalo, is will they go acquire a receiver 1? We'll talk about that ad nauseum until they have a receiver 1. So will they go get a Terry McLaurin? Or...
I don't think. Can they afford that though, Kev? A Terry McLaurin? They would have to.
No, but that would come at the expense of more than just draft picks. So the Bills would probably want to do some form of player for player trade. That's where you could get into a Curtis Samuel and a pick, or that's where you could get into. I mean, these guys aren't overly tradable when they want contracts. Right. So you always got to remember that, like, it doesn't cost a fortune if a guy needs $30 million.
Right.
Or in his case, I mean, Terry's a little older, maybe 26, 27 million.
Mm-hmm.
Their price is reduced, so it may be the cost of like the Curtis Samuel and a third.
What about James Cook? Would you put a James Cook in there?
I mean, I've been vocal in thinking that you should cash James Cook out. I've said that for years. I've said that prior to the season last year that you could cash out. Now his value is the highest. He's not going to repeat with the teens level of touchdowns again.
Right.
I think he regresses down to single digits, somewhere in the middle between his 2 and his 16.
Yeah.
So ultimately, I would trade him. He gives a good 1-year value, but I get it. Like, why would the Bills want to trade a guy that they're going to get pretty good value for? Because he's going to walk for nothing, and then you're not going to know how the comp pick game goes.
Yeah.
The Bills aren't going to pay him. So if he comes down a little bit, I could see them playing ball. I just don't see the Bills going to double digits for receiver.
I don't either.
For running back. When there's still other things to be done and still other positions that they need to take care of. So ultimately, I don't see it. Why not cash him out now for a Terry McLaurin? But I've said that for about a year now. So I think the Bills sees too much value. But the thing the Bills were hoping to have out of a running back you draft in the late second round is you're hoping to have the value of the 4th year. And because of his performance enhancers, the number 1 performance in the league of a contract boost, he's not a first round pick, he receives $5 million. So it's not a ton, but the Bills aren't even getting the benefit of the $1.8 million contract that he should be on. So a lot of people are forgetting that, like, he's not on a huge deal by any stretch, but he's making $5+ million. So
that's quite a bit.
It's not what he wants, obviously, but it's way more than what he would have made as a standard late second round pick. About $1 million in it, $1.8 million, $1.9 million. Yeah. So the Bills are hoping to have that $4 million benefit, but instead they got hit with the performance enhancers because of how he played. So the Bills are probably feeling like, look, dude, you already got a performance enhancer, like of your escalator bonus. Like, what more can we do here? Like, there's not a lot we can do financially because, like, you're up next year, man. So I ultimately think the Bills can trade that money away if they really need. The Bills can, if they want to trade for Terry McLaurin, the Bills can always make room to do so. But
and they could always extend him next year too, right? If they did it, they could extend McLaurin next year, right?
Sure. But I think the problem is McLaurin wants it now. I think
that's true. Yeah,
that's the problem. That's the whole problem. So just like Cook, kind of.
Yeah.
So it is a fair comparison between the two players. It does seem like Cook will show up and play. I don't know about Terry McLaurin, but the Bills could always make a decision like, let me trade. He is an asset. It is going to spice up in camp based on how this all goes. But it is a fair, realistic possibility. But then the Bills are down to 2 running backs. What do they do there? So there's plenty to be discussed when it comes to making player for player moves, which aren't overly common in the first place. But the Bills would have to in order to acquire a player because A, they're not going to trade a premium draft pick, and B, they need to shed cap. So they'd have to literally say the only way we ever take this player is Curtis Samuel or whomever. If you trade for a receiver, I'd have to imagine Curtis Samuel goes back in the deal. I have to. Like, it just would only make sense that.
Yeah, you're right. It would make sense there.
I mean, they're not going to trade Shakir, their guy. They just re-signed.
No,
they just drafted Coleman. I mean, I think they want to see what they have in Palmer.
Yeah.
I
think they like Elijah Moore. I think they do.
I think so too. I mean, it's not crazy. They could decide to move him, but the tradable piece is Curtis Samuel.
That's
in terms
of
if you trade, especially at the receiver position, that's the way you would have to go. But we'll talk about receiver for 3 straight years now, all the way back to the original D-Hop stuff.
That was
so
crazy.
They have shown the ability to do it, but not as high of a level as we're discussing here today until they prove me that they'll do more than just a late 3rd round pick.
Yeah. Okay.
Now, I know you got to get out of here, but I do want to ask you one more quick question, if that's okay.
Yeah, shoot.
Yeah. So obviously, you said there's not a lot of position battles heading into training camp, but what are you looking forward to with training camp, and which position battle most intrigues you?
Yeah, it's tough because you really look through the list of like where they're so the Bills rotate on the D line, and there's really not a huge battle there in the first place. I guess you could say some version of TJ. Where's TJ Sanders even going to play when he does sign? Was he going to play one? Was he going to play only three? Where's a couple of these guys that they've just drafted going to play? So D line's not really that huge of a battle. O line set, as we all know, like. I think they have a plan at receiver. I guess you could always default and say, who's going to win, Keon Coleman or Palmer? But I mean, similarly to D-line, they're going to have a rotation there. I think the only position of some form of battle per se is corner two. Is Harrison going to hold off Trey White and or his other rookie running mate in Dorian Strong? So like to me, Strong was a really great draft choice.
I like that pick.
It's very comparable to the Benford and Elam situation. Same rounds and everything. So we can't sit here and say that's not an applicable battle. I mean, the Bills literally have precedent choosing a 6th-round choice. That's not going to be common. I do expect Harrison to win the job. But I still think between White, Strong, and Harrison, there is a battle there, and hopefully not Dane Jackson, but there is a battle. There is a battle to be had there at that position. I think safety's not a big battle. I think it's Cole Bishop's job.
Yeah, it should be.
So Bishop and Rapp are the day one starters, and behind that is probably even sat between some combination of obviously they like DeMar Hamlin and what he can do. I mean, he's definitely always going to be the second safety, second back at twos, runs with the twos for sure, based on what he knows on the defense, and Forrest. So I mean, ultimately. And then they're going to have a versatile piece to back up Taron Johnson and probably safety as well in Hancock. So ultimately, I don't see much of a battle anywhere but cornerback 2, I guess. And Harrison's going to have they're going to do this differently than Elam. Harrison's going to have every opportunity to win this job. He's got to go in with a really pretty decent defense and look terrible. And then they'll begin to okay, Strong's playing pretty well. Or it would probably go to Trey White in that case, unless he looks bad too. But I don't see them making another decision of having day 3 draft picks. Also, really 3 starting cornerbacks at day 3 draft choices. But look, the Bills have a precedent. They're starting a 6th-round pick. They're starting a 4th-round pick at corner, and both have developed into top players.
Yep.
It's not crazy that they could select a day 3 corner to be a day 1 starter. But ultimately, this is Maxwell Harrison's job. He's got to come in. He's got to know the playbook. He's got to play man coverage better than Kyrie Elam did. And ultimately not rely on dropping back into zone coverage when he's not sure what to do. So Harrison's got the chops. He's got the makeup. He's got the athletic profile to do what it takes. And the Bills are hoping the ball skills come with it. So I don't see any, and linebackers pretty much set, in my opinion. I don't really see what happens. I mean, running back could be interesting based on Cook, but if Cook's here and normal, there's really really no battles anywhere on this field. And Bills even like their QB2 situation. Probably no one's going to beat out Trubisky, in my opinion. I really, truly, Pat, I don't know if there's really any battles that are going to be great for TV. But they'll find one. They'll find one. They'll find one somewhere. And, you could always go back to DT if you want and just say who's going to start next at Oliver. But the Bills rotate. It really doesn't matter in our defense. It's a silly debate. Who's going to – how many – I mean, you're really not discussing anything with if TJ Sanders starts or not. That's really more, is he going to play 40% of the snaps or 30% of the snaps? There's really not a huge debate on I mean, it's always going to be Daquan Jones' job for now.
Kevin,
I definitely do agree. Yeah.
Before you go, Kev, on the O-line, do you think Van Granger's going to end up being the starter next year over McGovern?
I mean, by what I know, Josh loves McGovern. So the Bills would have to basically not be able to afford him. And I still think that they would probably go out and make a decision on, is there somebody internally, to your point, Van Granger? Could it be, what are they looking at doing with any of their reserve linemen right now? But they probably go and spend some money at center if they lose McGovern, in my opinion. But it could very well be Van Granger based on this season. He said to only really be a center. but they have a lot of guys back there that they like. They like Grable at tackle. They
Yeah.
like Van Granger a lot. I personally, think that the backup unit is as good as anybody's backup unit in the NFL. You have Vandemark there. You have Alec Anderson, plays 6 offensive linemen, 3rd tight end. I mean, you have such a gamut of talent behind the starting 5 that it really is they may have to trade from it. Honestly, like it is probably where Bean is going to select another draft choice, because I just don't know that you can roster every single player from their offensive line, but they'll certainly try. And Chase Lunt's a guy that may just play right tackle here. But another guy that just played right guard that we all know is Osiris Torrance, played it really well.
Yeah.
So, and he's considered, believe it or not, based on all advanced analytics, Osiris Torrance is considered the weak link of this offensive line, and he didn't allow a sack last year.
Yeah.
So, he has some issues in the run. He has some issues at times being slow-footed, but the O-line is super good. It's a top 5 offensive line, and behind the starters, you have Chase Lunt and Tyron Grable, who I really like. You have Vandemark. Where does he fit in with the 2 tackles they drafted? What's going to happen on the interior? They have a ton of talent at the Bills offensive line position, and another guy they liked Kendrick Green, who's been a starter before in the past. Not a top tier starter by any stretch, but he's like the 9th offensive lineman on the Bills.
Right.
So there's a lot of talent there, Tommy. And I don't know if it would just default to Van Granger. I do think that Josh, he's always had, since he really came in, since Morse, since he's really been a starter, he's always had a higher end center. And actually McGovern has been better in his first year as a center than Morse finished. So
I'm with you. I think they might trade one, maybe like they did. It was last year with Ryan Bates to Chicago. They might try to get another draft pick.
That's how they accumulate these 4th and these 5ths.
Yeah.
Like, ultimately, offensive linemen. Everyone thinks of the running back or the Terrell Shavers or the players that you kind of see at times in training camp, but you always forget about like what does possess value, and what possess values are the Chase Lunts, the Tylen Grables, the Ryan Vandemarks. Those guys possess real value to NFL teams. And someone could come calling and saying, look, I have a tackle issue. What do you got for me? And the Bills are like, not letting him go for less than a 4. And then at that point, it is worth dipping into the bucket and saying, here's this guy. Give us a 4th for him. And that's how they can continue.
How they get the deals done.
The deals done. And Brandon Beane will absolutely do that. I do expect that, because they could end up liking a guy like Richard Garage behind everybody.
Oh yeah. So, that's another one of our unsung heroes, Kevin. We talked about him in the past.
So look, there's a ton of talent there. Richard Garage might not return you much in a trade today, maybe a 7th. But Bills could exercise that and take the 7th, or they could trade a higher player and push Garage onto the roster. So they could go either way with that. But they've been developing Garage for a reason. He comes from a pretty powerful program. So ultimately, this offensive line is loaded. I love everything about it. It's as good of an offensive line as I've seen. It's as good as an offensive line as I've covered since the Bills Super Bowl teams. Really, it's 10 deep, in my opinion, or deeper. And there's plenty of guys that the Bills may not be able to pass through waivers because they're on Hard Knocks this year. So the biggest guy I expect to take a big boost, maybe like a Frank Gore Jr. I don't expect him to go through waivers if he's going to get basically all of the second halves of preseason games. So someone's going to be a story on training camp on HBO and Hard Knocks. And unfortunately, it's probably going to come at the Bills' expense of not being able to push players onto the practice squad. So I do anticipate trades for day 3 draft choices. So not overly interesting, but the Bills will need, and they don't have any comp picks coming this year, unfortunately, because Cooper and Rasul Douglas didn't sign. So the Bills are probably expecting those guys to count for the comp pick formula, and they didn't. So they're going to have to trade, and offensive line's a really hot spot to trade from. Believe it or not, that's usually a place that you trade from. And linebackers, another sneaky place where Bills or teams trade linebackers for day 3 picks. It is proven. So, is there a guy there that's worth anything behind the Bills starters? There could be. Could Dorian Williams be on the move? Could a Yola Focio, does Buffalo Joe take over the true backup role? Is Balin Spector worth anything? So there's some movement to be had at this linebacker position. And, I do expect the Bills to make some trades in late August. So about a month from now, 6 weeks from now, I do anticipate the Bills moving at least one player for a draft choice. And O-line linebacker are 2 positions. And the Bills are deep at DB now. So there are plenty of choices that the Bills could go ahead and make a move across this roster. So I would look out for plenty of movement. And that's not even mentioning guys like, where does Javon Solomon fit in? Where does Dwayne Carter fit in? There's plenty of roster spots to be had by other teams, unfortunately. And I think the Bills may hit their cap on roster spots as you look at guys a little bit further down the road. It's going to be tough to roster this entire class, and that's including a bunch of their young DBs that they liked last year, like, Jamarcus Ingram, Daquan Hardy. We just talked about Dorian Strong, but Corey Couch, Brandon Codrington, Cam Lewis is a special team stud. I don't expect him going anywhere, but there's plenty of backup names there, and those aren't even the top 4. Because there's plenty of names there that the Bills are definitely going to trade from, because they ain't going to fit too many guys through to practice squad. Even though traditionally, guys, only 30 to 40 players get claimed across the league, which means you only lose a guy average. Right. But this year, I expect the Bills to maybe be more like 2 or 3 guys. So I would hope that they could trade a guy or two come late August.
Yeah. One more thing before you go, Kev. Matt Milano, do you think this is his last year in Buffalo, or do you think they maybe get something done next year?
Contractually, it is. So usually the Bills will move on. You don't see too much, just like Trey White, kind of. That's kind of what it reminds me of. The original Trey White. I do anticipate it being his last year, so the Bills will have to have some type of succession plan behind it. Is it Buffalo Joe? Is it Williams? Dorian? Is it something else? Yeah, I mean, Dorian Williams is an elite level run defender. Read and react. I have some major issues with him in coverage, so we'll see if he's able to correct any of that this season. But Milano was coming on last year finally. Ultimately, he's Buffalo through and through, Tommy. If he plays well and the Bills can get him at a number, and linebacker's not going to be a too costly position. It's not corner one. So fortunately, an outside linebacker can probably be had in the $4 to $6 million range.
Yeah, Brandon Beal work something out with him, I think.
So ultimately, it's more possible than other positions. So, but the Bills still have to worry about McGovern. They have to worry about James Cook, and they have to worry about David Edwards as well. There's a few names left.
That's right.
Edwards,
so they can't just go ahead and give Cook $15 million and call it a day. They have to actually think about this. So that's why we'll see. We'll see who makes it out of camp. We'll see if trades. Let's see. Let's see. Could the Bills get goofy and do something themselves and trade higher end players like Cook or like David Edwards or McGovern or I mean, it's not crazy that they could move somebody somewhere on this roster. Brian Vandemarks, Alec Andersons. There's a ton of talented players, and the Bills need to cash in on assets somewhere at some point with somebody. Right. So. And we'll see what happens, but there's some deep positions, guys. And Matt Milano, I wouldn't assume at this point, Tommy, he would resign, but things change in a hurry. But if he plays too good, then that's a different issue.
Yeah, true.
Now he's back in the upper 8, 9, 10 million. Bills won't sign there. If he's bad, they won't sign that. So
we kind of want him average, I guess.
In theory, you want him above average,
or above average
to play at like a $5 to $6 million range, and then you can discuss it. But
yeah,
if you play just like Bosa, if Bosa plays too good, right, you're not going to give him a $15 to $20 million contract. If he plays bad, you're absolutely not bringing him back. So the same thing is kind of for Bosa too. Is he a true one and done? Because I don't really see how, if he plays super good, you can't afford him. So I don't really see where, even like you couldn't even afford Floyd. So I don't really see where Bosa would fit in, even with a monster year. Like, he definitely doesn't fit in anywhere. So another thing, I guess you're rooting for like 8 sacks from him, but if he gets 20 or 16 to 17 sacks, guys, like, we're going to lose him.
We're going to lose him.
But ultimately, how much does that help the Bills? And in theory, having a 16 sack guy with Greg Rousseau, I would assume could be the difference of getting to the Super Bowl and beyond if they were able to add a 16 sack guy on them. So, you take give and take, but he's absolutely not resigning at that number.
Right.
All righty, Kevin. Well, I do want to appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
I greatly appreciate it. And do you want to tell everybody again where everybody can find you?
Yeah, you'll see all my content as usual at Kevin Massare on X. That's where the gamut of where I put my stuff. You'll catch me in guest appearances right now, and stay tuned for some updates. But guys, I really appreciate the 45 minutes. It was excellent talking all Bills. I'll tune into your new show going forward, and let me know as we get closer to maybe some camp battles. I can pop back in for some final recaps at the end of August, and maybe we can talk about if any of these moves we talked about in July come forward. We can put them up and talk about them then, because I wouldn't be shocked for one of the things we talked about to come to fruition. So
most definitely. I definitely think it can happen.
Appreciate you guys. Thank you so much for your time, and look forward to the rest of your show.
Thank you so much,
Kevin. Thank you again, Kev.
See you guys, man. See you guys. Have a good one.
Go Bills.
All right.
Well, Tommy,
that was some great stuff right there. Some good intel from Kevin.
Yes, it was. So tell me, what was your biggest takeaway from having Kevin on?
I think just the excitement about like where he's at with these camp outs. Like, he doesn't think there's going to be that many like battles to like watch, and that's actually good in a way, because that just shows how much depth we have as a team and how loaded we are as a roster. How do you feel about that, Pat?
No, yeah, most definitely. As you heard from Massare, the Bills' defensive line is stacked, especially our cornerback room is stacked, something that it was not in the playoffs last year. Once Benford went down, we were just talking about it before we went live. When Benford went down and Elam went into that game, I felt like it was going to be a lot harder. We could have done it, but it would be a lot harder. And it for sure was. And then we saw that, we didn't have the depth. I know Kyrie Elam's a friend of the network and everything like that. But you saw him get picked on. The Chiefs, they took his lunch money all game, the whole game. The Bills getting a 3rd and long. And he just
didn't live up to that first round pick, Pat. Yeah, that's just the all ends of it. He just did not live up to be that first round pick.
Right. And I had a conversation with a student about that. And sure, maybe it's a mixture of, he didn't have the playing time to start. He never really got into the in-game rhythm. Kyrie Elam did do good things for us. Look what he did against Pittsburgh in the wild card game with the interception against Deontay Johnson, guarding Deontay Johnson. He had that pick against, I believe it was Tua in the wild card game. He picked off Patrick Mahomes in the regular season in the red zone. So, he definitely did do good things for us, but it just never came to fruition, and he never built on the momentum. Yep. Maybe it was because due to, lack of playing time.
Right.
But at the end of the day, when the Bills needed him the most for a trip to the Super Bowl, literally, he was nowhere to be found. And I think that's something that the Bills have done better this year. Well, so far this offseason is they've seen it twice now in the Super Bowl. 2020 with Tampa Bay. That defense just went after Mahomes, especially that defensive line. And then we saw with Philadelphia too. And if you have a good defensive line, it's going to make everything on the back end easier.
Right.
So you see the Bills go after a TJ Sanders. Hopefully that whole contract thing gets worked out. You have Deion Walker, a true one tech, which could be, I'm not saying he's going to play up to the level of a Jordan Davis, but he has the size like a Jordan Davis. And if Deion Walker would have came out of the draft after his 2023 season, before the stress fracture that he had in his lower back, he would have been a first-round pick.
Right.
So I do want to give a shout-out to, Whittle and Beyond, host of the Coast to Coast show.
Yep.
Here on the Duchane's Media Network. And we do got a comment here from Tom. Go Bills.
Go Bills.
Go Bills. Appreciate you tuning in, Tom. And you
Thank you,
too
Tom.
as well, Josh.
Thank you, Josh.
Yeah. First, Deion Walker would have been a first-round pick, most likely. So I think we have a first-round talent at defensive tackle in Deion Walker. TJ Sanders was a early second-round pick. And then you have, obviously, Landon Jackson, which some people had us mocking him. Were mocking him to us in the first round.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, the Bills love Landon Jackson. I think he's a little bit more of a project than a guy more of a project than what Greg Rousseau was.
Right.
But I think Landon Jackson in this room with Ryan Nielsen, and with Bobby Babbage, the Bills are going to get the most out of these guys on defense. No doubt about it. But the difference is you have to do it in the playoffs. And that's just something that we haven't consistently done.
Mm-hmm.
But I think that will change this year, starting with that corner, having the depth at cornerback. We are loaded anywhere.
Oh yeah, 100%. I think this is the deepest roster we've had since probably Josh's second year.
Yeah, we do got a comment here from Josh. Do you guys have any insight on the Landon Jackson injury? Yeah, so we just had Kevin Massare on, and Kevin Massare said it's probably nothing to monitor. He could miss a day,
maybe a
training
tweak
camp, and he come right off the list.
I think he brought up was a tweak hamstring, but nothing. I don't think it's anything too serious.
Yeah, no, and that's what Kevin said too. But now, July 19th, he is advertised to have an appearance at the Mafia Con. If he's not at that, It's
then
probably a
maybe
little bit more serious.
yeah. So
But
let's keep
as
an
of
eye
right
on
now,
that for Mafia Con to see if he shows up and everything. And if he shows up there, then that might be some good news there on that front.
right, because the Bills don't want leaks and everything, and obviously if he's at Mafia Con, they're gonna flood him with
Right.
that question. So,
Yep.
Maybe, like Kevin said, he was playing with his nieces and nephews or his kids,
Yeah.
and pulled a hammy.
Yep.
So
And
it's probably
that
nothing
happens
too
all the
serious.
time. So they're small.
Right, I think it's the same thing with
kinks
Joey Bosa.
in the legs. Yeah, same. Yeah, I think same thing with Joey. So
Right, but with Joey Bosa, with it being more closer to training camp, that's why you didn't see Joey Bosa go on that list.
want to be very precautious with him, just because he's a what is he, a 10-year vet?
Right. Yes.
So you want to be very careful with that.
Right, and he's a guy who has played through injuries before, and the Bills want to keep him healthy because we do need him for the playoffs. That's why we signed him. For him to show up in the playoffs, as he has had some of his best games of his career against the Chiefs.
Right.
So, but I do think the Landon Jackson injury is nothing too serious. It's just the Bills are always going to take the cautious route with the injuries. We've seen it in the past. Look at Keon Coleman, look at Matt Milano, but they did want Trey White to play sooner, but it's more of a mental thing than it was physical, from what I've been told. So, yeah, but I think the Landon Jackson thing, you'll probably see him day 2 or 3 of training camp back out there.
All right, Pat, you ready to go into Tommy's takes?
Yes, let's go into Tommy's takes.
All right. So what we got for Tommy's takes this week is I got Ed Oliver over 10 sacks this year. I think with this revamped D-line, I think he's gonna be able to create some havoc up on the D-line, up on these O-lines that are going against them now that we got a revamped D-line. And I think he's just gonna wreak some havoc, go after the quarterback, and I think you will see him with a double-digit sack record.
Now, do you think Ed Oliver would get that because of a addition of a TJ Sanders? But he's a 3-tech as well. So is it because of a guy like Deion Walker, who is a true 1-tech, and a guy who can get to the quarterback as a 1-tech compared to a Daquan Jones, where Daquan Jones is on the second half, he's on the decline of his career, unfortunately.
Right.
So do you think it's mainly because of the addition of a Deion Walker?
I think it is, yeah, to beef up that D-line. I think he will help with the double teams, and that'll help Ed Oliver to get down there and go after the quarterback. I think he'll Walker will eat up the double teams, and it'll help Oliver out a lot.
Yeah, because we saw Ed Oliver when he had Daquan Jones, I believe it was 2 years ago, and that's when Ed Oliver had his breakout year, right after he got the contract extension before training camp, I believe it was, or during training camp, it was before.
Mm-hmm.
People were like, why are you giving him that much money? Then he came out and showed it. But now, last year, he didn't have a true 1-tech, because we saw when Ed Oliver has a effective 1-tech right next to him, he flourishes.
Yeah.
There's still times where Ed Oliver gets past double teams, and he's considered a undersized defensive tackle, and I believe he's 5'11", 6 foot, 280. So he's considered undersized, and he has the motor to go. 100%. We have seen it time in, time out. Where even look at the Detroit game last year, Tommy.
Oh yeah,
blowing up Frank Ragnow.
Yeah.
So put him next to Deion Walker.
He's no gimmick. He's a Pro Bowler, isn't he?
Ed Oliver is not.
No, I said
Frank Ragnow. Yes, Ragnow is a Pro Bowler.
Yeah, he's a Pro Bowler. So when he's doing that to a Pro Bowler, you're making a name for yourself on the D line.
Most definitely. So I definitely do like that. With having if it is Deion Walker alongside him again, like we already talked about tonight, the Bills do run a heavy defensive line rotation, as they do run at the most percentage in the league. They run at the most. Mm-hmm. So having a Joey Bosa, Greg Rousseau, Ed Oliver, and Deion Walker is what I'm going to predict on the starting defensive line. Pick your poison, man.
Yeah,
if this Bills defense is looking good in the playoffs, they will be just fine.
Yeah, 100%.
So let's get into Pat. Let's go into Pat and Tommy's Audible of the Week.
All right.
I will start this. Per source here at Do Champions, Student Body Right, the CEO of Do Champions, came and said, all right, here's one vetted as complete as I could. July 21st, 2025, a different version of a certain version of the 90s Bills uniforms will be back.
Mm.
Either be the helmet uniform, we don't know. That is what's wait to be seen. And I guess we will find out July 21st. I know there was some other reports. I believe it was from Buffalo Rumblings that said the Bills could be showing a alternate helmet. But, as it was possibly Student Body Right got it from, per his source. I don't know who that is, so I'm just gonna leave that at that. But he does have a good track record of being right. So Tommy, red helmets.
Yeah, so apparently we're getting two different versions of the Bills this year for uniforms. Like we're getting a Rivals jersey, and then we're, like you said, with that tweet from Student, we were going to get a revised 90s uniform alternate. I mean, I think this is great for the Bills and the history, especially it being the last year at Highmark Stadium. I mean, I think this is the perfect year to go out and do these uniforms. So we'll see like what when they'll debut. But I have in mind, if they did do a 90s, I say why not do it opening Sunday night football, Sunday night. At the Ralph. I'll still call it the Ralph, but like at the Ralph, and like rocking out at the 90s uniforms opening night. I think that would be great. And then for the Rivals, I think it would have to be Miami, because I feel like Miami is one of their biggest rivals in NFL history. So I mean, why not put the Rivals out week 3 against Miami? What do you think?
Right,
Pat?
and we did see that the NFL rivalry jerseys, when they were not revealed, but when they first announced them, it would be a home game against a division rival. And so I do think it will be Miami week 3, that's the game that me and you both are attending most likely, hopefully.
Yep.
Then as far as the the 90s uniforms goes, they are able to, they don't have to file for an application or anything like that with the league with those, because they already worn them in the past. If you have worn any of your jerseys in the past, you don't have to file for new uniforms because it's not new.
Right.
You're just bringing them back. Now, I know ML Football tweeted out something that said it was all blues with a blue helmet. Sure, those could be something if the Bills were to have filed for a new alternate uniform, which they did not do by the deadline. So those would have to be the rival jerseys.
Right.
Which the Nike's keeping that close to the chest. That's not going to be them. So I guess we'll wait and see. But again, because of the Bills have worn, either if it's the Standing Buffalo or the red helmets, because they've worn it in the past, they don't have to file for a new alternate.
Right.
So that's why I think we've known that the Bills have had the red helmet since 2023. So they're at one Bills drive. So it's just a matter of fact, it's time. And I think July 21st, you will see the Bills announce the 90s.
Yeah.
Which will be really cool.
Which game do you think it's going to be, Pat? If you were to predict a game, which game would they unveil at?
I think it would maybe be a primetime game.
Okay,
so,
you think
I'm looking
it's
at
be a prime time game?
Maybe against New England at home.
Okay.
Sunday Night Football, week 5.
Week 5, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I think the rival jerseys will be week 3 against Miami.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking too. Yeah, that makes sense.
So, Tommy, before we get out of here, I do want to, again, say shout out to Poncho's Army's Backpack Drive, August 16th. Make sure you tune in there for a great cause and just go there, and put a smile on somebody's face, because it's free 99 to put a smile on somebody's face. But also make sure you check out Butcher's Rolls Charity Bowl event. It's Saturday, September 6th, 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. Eastern. So make sure you check those out as well. And Tommy, I'm going to give you the floor to talk about our social medias.
Yes, so you guys can give us a follow on TikTok, YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Twitch, Kick, and then your other media sources like Spotify and Amazon Music. We are follow us on @DoChampions. So definitely give us a follow. We bring everybody good content, and we keep it real with Bills fans all around the nation. So yeah, just give us a follow and give us a like and watch our shows. We run shows weekly, usually Monday through Friday. So just check us out, and we'll give you good content.
Yeah, we every Tuesday you have myself and Tommy at Bills Canvas. Wednesday you have the Coast to Coast podcast with the almighty Widow 2K and Beyond 716. Friday you have Chasing Data as he goes live at 8 Eastern. And Friday you also have the Gridiron Grand Slam, which was myself in the gaming. And we're adding 2 new shows, but that's to be announced. top secret. Cannot say much more than that.
Right.
But yeah.
And don't forget Saturdays, Third and Manageable whenever they can.
Yes, Saturdays.
Yep.
How did I forget the main show, the network? Oh my goodness. I'm gonna hear about that one. Student, if you're watching, I apologize. Matt, I'm sorry.
Shout you guys.
Yeah.
Forget.
Yeah, Third and Manageable podcast every Saturday at
Yep.
9 Eastern, I believe it is. And
Yep.
as they always have on, nothing but illustrious guests. So for myself, Pat Breckness, and Tommy Giambra,
Yep.
we will see you next week.
Good to be seen, and let's
Good to
paint.
be seen. Let's paint.
For the best Italian food in Western New York, Elliot Apollos, call 716-825-3675. The Lardon Construction Group.
Fubo TV, the official streaming service of Do Champions. FanDuel, the official sportsbook of Do Champions.
For all your summertime needs, beauty pools, as well as kayak pools.
CX Chronicles, your total customer solutions focused manager. W.GG, the official energy drink of Do Champions.
Hey, Sons of Erie, our artwork looks better on your walls. Hamburg Brewing, please visit our tap room on Boston State Road, Hamburg, New York. And finally,
Fat Boy Surf Club for all your surfing needs.
All right, Pat, you there? You there, Pat?